Hello everyone, my name is Lowko and welcome back to another professional best of 5 series in StarCraft 2, and what I got for you today is a top of the line match of Protoss versus Terran. Spawning here in game number 1 on Blackpink LE and playing with the blue Protoss probes, we have none other than Hero, who of course plays for Root Gaming. And his opponent, spawning on the opposite side of the map, he's playing with the red Terran SCVs. He plays for Storm Gaming. We are currently looking in the main base of Gumiho. So of course both of these players are very successful when it comes to their StarCraft 2 careers already. Gumiho, definitely a very potent Terran player. He ended up winning a GSL Code S last year in 2017. Arguably speaking, the hardest tournament to win outside of maybe BlizzCon. Gumiho, of course, one of the players who really popularized, for example, Thor drops, in particular in the Terran versus Zerg matchups. Now of course, back in the day, back in like 2010, we did see some cheeses with Thor drops as well. But Gumiho really made it one of the standards when it comes to playing mech versus Zerg, and he is really one of the reasons why mech started becoming a lot more popular in the TVZ matchup. Now, of course, he is going up against the Protoss here today, so I would be very surprised if he ends up doing something along those lines. Mech is still very uncommon to play if you are a Terran player against the Protoss, just because Protoss has got so many hard-hitting units, like for example Immortals and Archons and whatnot, that just simply can plow through all of your siege tanks, but it is popping up every once in a while. Now Hero, I mean, he's one of the most successful Protoss players of all time. He ended up winning a GSL Super Tournament, an SSL, a Kespa Cup, as well as 3 Intel Extreme Masters around the globe. There's no denying that Hero is definitely one of the strongest Protoss players alive. He's still very good at the game, even to this date as well, and I think if you've been watching StarCraft 2 ever since the very beginning of the game, you've probably heard of Hero. He's a very good player. I'm curious to see how he's gonna pick up this matchup here. I like this already though. A nice little setup here with his very first pylon gateway as well as cybernetic score. There's this nice little jumping pad right here where the Reaper can become a bit of a nuisance, but if you wall just in the way that Hero is doing, rather than walling at the top of the ramp, he's walling at the top of this little jumping plateau, which is just to throw his opponent off a little bit. Now Gumiho isn't even going to try and move up there just yet. Instead, he is currently already moving up to that ramp. The Adept did end up getting a single shot off. It is indeed going to try and shade this unit around here for a little while as well. Great micro there by Gumiho though, really deflecting that acceleration of the unit. And while the Adept is going to try and shade across once again, he knows very well where this Reaper could be hiding. And this is one of the fun parts of the Protoss versus Terran matchup. These players will go up against each other so very often. They have practiced these kind of openers thousands and thousands of times. Usually the harassment should be kept to a minimum right now from the Terran player. A lot of lost mining time already, even a probe kill right now as well. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, the command center did already finish up the Adept, not really achieving a whole lot there, and Gumiho picks up 2 worker kills, and the Reaper survives to fight another day. In the meantime though, inside of that main base here of the Terran player, we do see that 1-1-1 style coming up. So that's 1 barracks, 1 factory, as well as 1 starport. This has really become super popular in pretty much all of the Terran matchups. One of the things that we have been seeing a lot of. Actually, apparently this quick Widow Mine is going to be set up in a bit of a peculiar position. Maybe this is just to try and bait in an Adept shade to try and get into this area, or maybe for like a Warp Prism to fly in, or maybe an Oracle a little while later. It's one of those cute little things that may be difficult to spot if you are the Protoss player a little while into the game, just because the Widow Mines, of course, do one-shot pretty much everything that Protoss can throw at them, other than the absolutely massive units. Now here we go. The Reaper is gonna try again. This time around, it will have to pay for this shenanigans with its life. Didn't really see a whole lot, but it did see that it was indeed there was indeed a Stalker added on as well. And really for both players right now, we are seeing some pretty standard builds. Hero decided to go for that very quick Warp Prism. Apparently, he is gonna, well, I say standard builds, but this is a little bit awkward actually. He's gonna go for a Warp Prism harassment-based style without Blink. I didn't quite realize that he was actually going for a bunch of stalkers there inside of that warp prism. I'm curious to see what this is going to do. Of course, he doesn't really need blink if he has a warp prism. Practically every unit has blink at that point. I'm curious to see if he decides to go for a bit of a warp in right here as well. Now there is already a siege tank out. Stimpack, of course, not done just yet. Great pickup though, just barely in the nick of time by Hero. And in the meantime, on the other side of the map, we see the medevac also arriving there. Two stalkers desperately trying to help out against that fight, and it turns out that indeed the aggression there was deflected as well. You can already see the skill level though, right? Both players trying to micro two different angles at once, and both players really not losing, you know, much of anything. Maybe a couple of Marines ended up going down there. Great pickup micro once again. He doesn't want to take any base damage on this warp prism just because the warp prism is meant to fly for as long as he possibly can. And maybe he's going to be able to delay this command center for a little while. Maybe he's going to be able to pick up a supply depot for his troubles. It's little bits and pieces that don't just simply force the Terran player to stay home, but of course it also supply blocks the Terran player here for just a little while. Matter of fact though, still trying to be a bit of a nuisance, and this is really like the nature of the Terran versus Protoss matchup right now. We do see some all-ins from time to time, but players are really just trying to be a nuisance more so than anything else. They're trying to slow each other down, and by being so active with, for example, the medevac and the warp prism, of course, you can really force your opponent to stay at home, because as soon as you decide to leave your base, the warp prism or the medevac will go in, and it really does make it tricky to go for like one concentrated attack move. No third nexus to be seen anywhere. Instead, we're seeing more and more gateways here coming up here for our Protoss player. A Colossus is now coming up here, as well as, of course, the speed upgrade there for the Warp Prism. So I'm curious to see what Hero decides to do once that upgrade finishes up here in just a little bit. He's trying to hunt down this single medevac. So far, though, the medevac is being sent home at a bit of a weird angle just to try and deflect this Stalker army here altogether. And while the Marine is now desperately indeed scouting forward here, it recognizes that there is no third base taken. Hero is now finally taking another nexus here at the more conventional base right down south of his natural. Warp Prism though is still hanging out, and this is critical. This is one of the things that you really can see out of the top of the line players. You will now, by the way, confirm, Gumiho that is, that there is indeed a third base taken here by the Protoss player. But this is one of the key characteristics of the top-of-the-line players. Oftentimes, they will indeed keep these Warp Prisms alive for the entirety of the game. And now that the speed upgrade is done, right, it can really turn into an absolute nuisance. Because as soon as he scouts that this Terran player is moving across, I can guarantee you that the Warp Prism is going in. Now, there is a nice little missile turret set up there. Might be able to get a couple of pot shots there, but the thing is, the speed upgrade, right? It just makes the Warp Prism so capable of flying away. It's not that expensive of an upgrade. And really, even though this is not going to deal any damage, once again, it's forcing the Terran player to leave a lot of those units at home. Now, charge is not quite done just yet, so it does look like the Cyclone will be able to nibble away at these units for just a little while. Hero is still dropping off those Zealots anyway to try and threaten the Cyclone to not move out. Apparently, the probe, though, was indeed safe there to scout for a little while longer. But now that charge is just about to finish up, as well as that third base, I think that we may very well see a bit of a move out here from Gumiho. There are, of course, a couple of these Colossus as well. He's got that Warp Prism still to really continuously warp in a lot of reinforcements. I love this little move. Luckily for the Marine there, he did end up scouting that there was more than just that single Warp Prism. That does give Gumiho the heads up to potentially defend against this push, or to, for example, go for the counterattack. Siege tanks right now, as well as a lot of those Marines, are currently stimming towards that third base location. No probes are mining there just yet, but at the exact same time, we see, of course, a massive Widow Mine hit on the other side of the map. The Protoss army is planning to close out this game right here, right now. Do you want to go home and try and defend against this? So far, it does turn out that that is not going to be the case. The Marines and the siege tanks, though, they have successfully killed off one of those bases, but so many SCVs and Protoss units are dealing so much damage. Look at that, right? 19 SCVs in just a matter of seconds. Beautiful pickup micro once again, but in the meantime, on the other side of the map, we once again see those siege tanks picking off another base. The Marines and the Marauders are now stimming up the ramp. They're going to try and see if they can potentially close out this game right here, right now. Mass recall now forced, though, on a lot of these units. Not all of them, however. The Warp Prism is left behind a single Immortal, as well as a lot of those Zealots. Still, this is a very menacing army to push into. I feel like Gumiho has got the shorter end of the trade here, but he does still have this up and running base. Of course, right, I mean, I'm assuming here Hero knows about this base. He hasn't seen it yet, but he should really be aware of the fact that this base is mining. Right now, the Warp Prism will be able to send some units down there with the Observers scouting this area as well. I think that the siege tanks indeed were picked up into the medevacs there, and Gumiho is gonna start heading back home. I really feel like, though, this army here, yeah, I was gonna say a couple of units should have been hacking and slashing away at the mineral line there. Even though Gumiho doesn't have a very big force anymore, he still has a force that at the very least is capable of slowing down his opponents. Plus, on top of that, he's got that massive economy. Supply-wise, there's no denying that Hero is here ahead, right? But he only has got a single base that's almost mined out. He's currently warping in about a gazillion sentries. These are not, you know, units you can merge together into an Archon. And I wish, you know, I wish for him here that he had a Templar Archives, but apparently instead, Hero is going to warp in at home and go for a last-ditch push. He has decided that he doesn't want to add on another Nexus right now, so I think that he's going to go for an all-out, all-in. The thing is, though, look at this position here, right? There's, of course, that Liberator. I love the decision here, actually, to put the Orbital here as sort of like a semi-wall to protect these siege tanks for a little while longer. Rather than mining, right, he's just simply using it to produce stuff a little bit closer towards that third base location. Now, this is a very important scout here by Gumiho as well. You will recognize, hey, wait a second. There is indeed, of course, those rocks that I have to worry about as well. War Prism's still alive. He's trying to drop them off and maybe pick off, of course, these Immortals, by the way, I mean with that. Like, he's trying to drop off the Immortals to potentially pick off one of those siege tanks. So far, not really getting all of that value. In the meantime, though, two medevacs decided to move across the map. Extremely tough decision there by our Terran player. He is going to be able to take care of this final Nexus, and that forces Hero to make a move forward. Immortals, target firing down all of those siege tanks. The Colossus is still up in the air as well. Liberator did get picked off there by all of those Stalkers. Zealots all of a sudden closing the distance, and while I thought that defensive posture there for the Terran player was a little bit too strong, Hero is now revealed as well. We are having an insane game number 1 of what is a best of 5 series. Of course, he's trying to float these buildings into the corner of the map. This is one of the things that Terran players can do. I don't really see exactly how the Protoss player can really obtain the victory here, though. He did end up losing the Nexus, so there's no longer a massive recall available, but I can't help but wonder that Gumiho is simply going to be able to float some buildings into the corners of the map. Still, the Colossi are dealing so much damage. They have already... Oh my god, that's 24 kills in just a single unit. A probe got picked up into this War Prism to make another structure. There are still 130 minerals available here for the Protoss player, so he can make a pylon or an assimilator. The thing is, though, this Terran army, right, it's gonna be able to pick off all of these units here eventually, and all of the buildings here as well, whereas the Terran player, he's gonna be capable of floating buildings towards the corner of the map. Look at this, right? At the very best, this is gonna be a draw right here for Hero, it feels like, unless Gumiho is feeling mannered enough to give the win here to his opponent, right? I do kind of feel like, look at the amount of buildings that are still remaining here. As long as he gets one hanging out right over here, he's forcing the draw, right? He's forcing the draw. Now, a single Viking will spawn. It did get picked off almost immediately there. Tried to get a couple of shots off on that single Colossus. 35 kills. This is an insane game, honestly. Oh my god, the War Prism. Whew, that War Prism at like 10 HP there. You will be able to keep it alive for a little while longer. Now, that command center, right? He doesn't have money right now to repair it. You do need money in order to repair this, of course. Gumiho will need to get some more of those resources here. Still, there are so many structures here remaining. The question is Hero gonna try and close out this game right here, right now? And is Gumiho gonna give him that advantage? There are still so many Marines and Marauders available here. War Prism still alive. Remember that War Prism micro, right? It's absolutely spot on. Gumiho now trying to fly some of those Terran structures above this army as well to try and make the pickup micro a little more difficult. Oh my god, oh, did you see that? The War Prism ended up dying there. And I think that somehow, some way, Gumiho has done it. Oh my, no way. That was honestly one of the best games of TVP that I've seen in recent times. Now, not necessarily because both of the players played it absolutely perfectly. They really didn't. But that was nail-biting. That was insane. And that was only the first game of this series. I'm actually kind of curious what would have happened there if the Protoss player was capable of stomping through all of those units, right? But Gumiho still had flying buildings. Would Gumiho, and I don't think he would have. I actually don't think he would have. Would Gumiho have forced the draw? Because I wouldn't be surprised, right? If a lot of Terran players out there would just simply decide, it's a fair game, you know, in the end, right? If he would have just simply decided to take one of the buildings, float it in the corner of the map, and make it so that the Protoss player can never actually win the game. Now, obviously, he doesn't necessarily have to do that. Obviously, these guys are obviously friends as well, and they have a lot of viewers that watch these kind of games. I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts on that as well. Do you think it would have been okay for the Terran player there to force the draw? Right, hypothetically speaking, because there was no more mining anymore for the Protoss there, so he couldn't make a starport or you know, any air units there whatsoever. He could have like floated one of the buildings towards the corner of the map, rather, make it impossible for the Protoss player to kill it, and therefore force the draw after like a half hour or so. Right, the game will eventually detect a stalemate scenario and it will force the draw. And obviously a lot of people will be like, yo, dude, like, you clearly lost the game, right? You clearly haven't won, so you've lost. I do think it's fair game to force the draw there as well, but I can imagine it's one of those conflicting subjects that a lot of people do not necessarily see eye to eye on. I don't know. Let me know down below in the comment section. Do you think it would have been okay for him to force the draw there? Obviously, he ended up winning the game, so, you know, it's just hypothetical, I guess, but it's still an interesting thing to discuss. We haven't really seen that very often at the professional level of StarCraft. This time around, though, a bit of a different opener here for Gumiho. He's going to open up with that single Marine here rather than immediately going into the Reaper. No SCV Scout either, so he's currently practically blind here. Apparently, Hero had already decided, though, that he did want to go off for the wall there on the top of this little ramp. But with that scouting probe, he realized, hey, there's no Reaper play at all. And apparently, he's immediately going to capitalize on this as well. I actually really like this. So Gumiho gets a single probe scout or a probe kill there at his third base location. At the same time, another probe was moved out across the map. This is not something that Hero is really... Oh my god, this is so cheeky, right? I wonder if Hero maybe even gifted that probe kill there on accident, quote-unquote accident, right? To try and proxy the Stargate a little more aggressively. Now, even more interestingly, if a building would be constructed over there, obviously it would see towards the high ground and have this, have this building scouted almost immediately. We have seen this a little bit more. So a single shield battery will go up there as well. Hero, upon recognizing that it wasn't a Reaper opener, and upon recognizing, oh my god, this is a really important scout. Upon recognizing that it wasn't indeed an SCV scout either. Right now, Gumiho will figure out what is going on, but Hero has already decided to go for a hyper-aggressive push. Pylon, however, is the only thing that is powering this. The Warp Prism, or rather the Oracle, is now being chrono boosted out as well. It does look like it won't go down. Oh my god! Oh, I thought he was going to return there for just a second. Second Pylon, though, will finish up here eventually, and that does mean that the Oracle comes out. It's going to be able to take care of most of these units. One of the shield batteries immediately going down as well. It does look like Hero is going to commit to this aggression for a little while longer, but the two Marauders and a single Marine ended up doing a great job just simply delaying this. Still, though, the bunker is not done just yet. Looks like, oh, actually, the Oracle is out of energy, so it won't be able to continue its zapping abilities here either. The bunker, though, not in range here of hitting that ramp. Of course, he wants to try and protect that Stimpak upgrade, which will inevitably shut this down here after a little while. Still, I think that Gumiho has done a great job just simply preventing his opponent from winning the game straight up. Still, Hero is going to continue onwards with this aggression. He's setting up a couple of these shield batteries right now in his opponent's natural expansion. This is one of those things, of course, where you can just simply fall back on continuously. Still, if you have Stimpak, you can oftentimes kill units before they deal any kind of critical damage. I think that one of the SCVs actually got target fired down right there by our Terran player. Stalker standing firm. It's desperately trying to hold its ground until the shield batteries are done. And so far, I would say that Hero is doing a magnificent job, playing a very cheeky style, now even transitioning towards Void Race upon realizing that there are indeed not that many Marines available here, but rather a bunch of Marauders here as well. Command center now on the low ground will be picked off. Still, that Stimpak upgrade, it is pretty close to finishing, right? It is pretty close to finishing. There is still that bunker as well. It's got 4 Marines in there. There's no expansion, of course, in the meantime on the other side of the map, although Hero may decide to take that one here in just a little bit. Worker-wise, Gumiho is not in a terrible spot. He does still drop a lot of mules here as well. Factory now being rebuilt here as well, or rather, he's building one right now on top of that main base. Stimpak is now done as well. He hasn't shown it yet, but there we go. Gumiho. He's going to stim forward with a couple of those Marines. One of the Void Rays will immediately end up dying. Second Void Ray now also picked off for practically free. Oracle's still floating around. Stalker's now going after that command center. I think he's actually going to try and simply just fly it away, so these Stalkers will be forced to go back as well. And so far, even though Gumiho doesn't seem like he is in a great position, he's really getting the most out of the units that he's got. I would even love it if he makes like a single missile turret over here. I don't even know if that's a super smart move to make. I think you might want to prioritize units instead, but there's no denying that he's got a really nice setup here. Command center though, oh, it is burning right now. I was gonna say, he wants to really prevent that one from burning here for the time being. The Void Ray though will find it here anyway, and Hero will be able to pick that one off, in particular with that prismatic alignment that is now activated. In the meantime, on the other side of the map, Hero has decided to take his natural location for an expansion anyway. There is now, of course, also that starport that was done, but Gumiho, upon losing that command center, is now supply blocked. I think actually somehow, some way, Hero may have still done this, right? He may not accidentally, or he may not actually end up winning the game right here, right now. But he does still have that superior economy, right? I wouldn't even mind it if he decides to go back home at this point in time. He's got that economical lead. He can build upon that. Now, the one thing that the Terran player does really have, though, over the opponent is a lot of upgrades. Combat Shield will finish up here in just a little bit as well. Still, this supply block is really hurting Gumiho. He's lost so many things there. And do you really want to, like, drop a supply depot here at this point in the game as well? I don't think you really want to do so. Yeah, so many depots were picked off, as well as that command center. It really forces Gumiho to make a lot more supply depots, and Gumiho is slowly but surely starting to fall behind. Now, a single one of the medevacs did pick up a couple of units there. The units will be able to start getting rid of a couple of these structures as well. Actually, the pylon there, the pylon kill there, actually forcing the Protoss player to get supply blocked as well. Stimpack, however, is done. Of course, his combat shield right now as well. He's going to be able to continue moving forward, and one of the Void Rays once again does get picked off. We now see the blink upgrade coming up here for Hero. It looks like he's going to transition towards more and more gateway units here as well. Gumiho, though, still has got a very scary army. He's trying to pick off that single shield battery, or rather the pylon there that's powering all of those shield batteries. It will go down as well. Actually, I'm curious to see if Gumiho actually can somehow come out ahead here. He's got a scary army, right? Marines and Marauders, they have, they have been a gold standard for the Terran army since the very beginning of time. At the very least, as far as the beginning of time of StarCraft goes. Marines and Marauders with Stimpack and Combat Shield, extremely potent. We now see that Liberator coming up here as well. Command Center will be created. Hero once again coming in though. He's going to go ahead and target fire down even the Command Center after that SCV as well. And it does look like these units have enough energy to force the cancel on it. Nicely done there. But at the same time, right, this Terran army, even though a Stasis Ward was trying to prevent his army from moving across the map, the Terran army is now loaded up into medevacs. And I think that Gumiho may very well try to go for a last-ditch effort. He's still making a lot of units at this point. Hero does not know about the fact that his army is right over here. Oh my god, both of the oracles get picked off almost immediately. Scanning the main base will confirm that most of that Protoss army is now trying to make its way back into the main base here as well. Hero does still have a menacing army. He doesn't have the perfect vision inside of the main base, but he now knows that indeed this Terran army is picked. Oh my god, the blink! The blink! Oh, he didn't show blink yet. Oh, that's so cheeky. He finished blink a little while ago already. He did not show it until the last second there. Gets a full medevac for his troubles. I thought for a second this was going to be a Warp Prism, but no, that's not quite going to be the case. Warp Prism is just now coming up here for Hero. Still, Liberator is going to make its way across the map as well. A lot of sentries are remaining here as well. Great force fields, though, from Hero. He has a massive amount of units. Now, target firing down those Liberators as well. And I think, even though it looked like the rush got shut down, Gumiho will be picked off here. The medevacs still not in a perfect position. They do get picked off there, but Hero, in a really well-fought game, ends up obtaining the victory here in game number 2. I just love watching the Protoss versus Terran matchup right now, honestly. Like, I'm playing a lot of random over at the live stream. I'll be honest with you, I half the time don't really understand what's going on whenever I do play Terran or Protoss, and I don't really know exactly what my opponent is doing. It's so hard to guess. There are so many different options, and I'm looking at these games, right? For example, Gumiho skipping out the STV scout in the previous game, and Hero immediately recognizing that, also seeing that it wasn't a Reaper opener, and then making the on-the-spot decision to go for a proxy Stargate. He was so quick with that decision-making that it's so difficult to copy these kind of styles. I really like it, though. I mean, this is the way that you win tournaments, right? And I really feel... I've said this several times before in videos, but I really feel right now we have arrived at a level in StarCraft 2, and I say that, and Gumiho is putting up a random barracks at a random spot in a very powerful position. But I really feel like we have arrived right now in a state of StarCraft 2 at the professional level where, you know, you can aspire to become a professional gamer, but if you're not already at a very high level, it's extremely difficult to get to this level. I mean, I've been playing StarCraft 2 for like 8 years, pretty much every single day, right? I've got a lot of hours logged in this game. I'm pretty decent. I'm like top 500 in Europe or so we're definitely not bad. I actually think I'm a little bit higher up right now. I think I'm like top 300 or so. Anyway, like there's no denying though that the level that these guys are playing at is miles ahead of my personal one. It's not that I can't necessarily execute these strategies, but there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of mind games going on. There's a lot of like strategies that are only being played in these tournaments going on. Players are cutting an insane amount of corners to try and, for example, go for a bit of a proxy here, right? He's making sure that he is putting all of his eggs in one basket. I can guarantee you this is not something that Gumiho practices on the ladder. I mean, he might do it every once in a while, but this is not his standard game. Right? There's a lot of custom games that are being played where you try to just simply go for a strategy that is specifically designed to take out your opponent. And I'm pretty sure if you show me like 20 different Terran games, I can probably, you know, just by seeing the players play and you hide the names, I could probably go ahead and point out who's playing what. You know, like they all have such a distinctive style, all of the top-of-the-line Terran players. And the same for Protoss and Zerg players, right? They play so very distinctive that you can almost tell who's playing just by seeing the units, even if you hide the names. Anyway, even though I'm blabbering on about unrelated stuff, Gumiho has decided that he doesn't want to go for any kind of Reaper cheese, which I originally assumed. Instead, he has decided to follow it up with a factory here and then also a bunch of Cyclones. And I actually really like this. Usually the counter to, of course, Reaper play, and this is not really a Reaper map to begin with, but usually the counter to Reaper play is, of course, going to be a Stalker as well as a bunch of Adepts. Instead, though, it's gonna be Cyclones that are very good against both Stalkers as well as Adept, as well as that Zealot. But the robotics facility is now already chrono boosting out an Immortal, so that does mean that Gumiho is on a bit of a timer. He has a huge amount of units here, though, already on the other side of the map, trying to supply block his opponent, but that won't halt the production of the already producing robotics facility unit there. He's immediately gotta go after a pylon, though, but beautiful targeting here as well by the Terran player. He's already got those pylons here as a backup to power this robotic facility for a little while longer. The Immortal comes out and it will shut down his aggression here for the time being. Hero, though, immediately jumping into the Warp Prism after the Immortal. I think many players, and I think, you know, most of the pros as well, would have gone for a second Immortal there, right? And this is one of those things that Hero does. He's instead not going for a second Immortal because he knows he's already got this push shut down for the most part. I mean, there's still a chance that Terran is, of course, going to commit more to it, right? And a couple of Widow Mines and maybe like 3, 4, 5, 6 Cyclones start joining the battle as well. You still definitely need more than just one Immortal. Instead, though, there's that Warp Prism immediately coming up. I really, really like it. It's those little moves that really do make all the difference. Anyway, in the meantime, on the other side of the map, Gumiho already started up his starport as well. Factory is still floating across, and so is the barracks. But he does get that cloaking field upgrade, so he is anticipating the fact that, of course, the Immortals are moving across the map with a Warp Prism. You see this back and forth that I'm talking about? It's so sick. Both players, like, it's literally like playing chess. They're thinking a couple of steps in advance. It's so cool to see this. So Gumiho knows his rush failed. He knows that there's a good chance that there's going to be a follow-up. So what counters, of course, a lot of these units? Banshees with Cloak, because with these kind of War Prism plays, usually you go for Immortals as well as the War Prism and not necessarily an Observer. As soon as the Cloaking Field finishes, though, he's definitely going to need one. Now, beautiful Widow Mine positioning there. Oh, he tried putting the units there into the War Prism. Ooh, great set of volleys there by these Cyclones as well. There's no detection available here for the Protoss player just yet. Supply depots will be raised just now, barely in the nick of time. Hero once again looking to go for an all-in here. The Cloaking Field upgrade though for these Banshees is not done just yet, and rather than actually using it defensively, Gumiho is now sending it across the map. War Prism now loaded up with a couple of Immortals though. They're of course very, very good at picking off those units. He needs to be careful because the War Prism can go down very easily here by just a single Widow Mine with its lowered HP. Still, there's pretty much nothing available here for the Protoss player to defend. He may force a Warp in at home, but the Cloaking Field is done right now. Here we go. He's going to start nibbling away at these probes. In the meantime though, a lot of these units are now being elevated up towards the high ground, actually using the supply depot positioning here of the Protoss or of the Terran player against him, picking up those weakened Immortals once again as well. And while indeed a lot of these units are staying alive, in the meantime, on the other side of the map, we did indeed see that Banshee now getting picked off as well. I think that the Terran player was indeed busy microing here on the other side of the map. Still, we have this single Banshee here going to town, picking up a lot of those units. War Prism still grabbing all of those weakened units. And I really feel like the War Prism is the one, you know, it's the one unit that really allows Protoss to make these moves. Like, if there's one thing that we can say about all of the top-of-the-line Protosses, is that they're extremely good at War Prism control. Still needs to be so careful, though. Look at this, right? Oh my god, he tries to get the Siege Tank. Doesn't quite get the Siege Tank there. Eventually, though, the Banshees will be able to pick it off. And, of course, Banshees, they can chase this War Prism all they want, but they're not capable of killing it just yet. Mules will drop right now as well, though. Once again, trying to pick off a couple of those units, picking off a handful of SCVs. So very cheeky. He noticed there that the starport wasn't producing anything. And actually, I thought that Hero was being shut down there. Luckily for him, he did end up getting the Banshee kill on the other side of the map, right? I think that would have been a disastrous move if that one was still going to town. But luckily for him, he does still have a very solid economy. He also ended up killing, let's see, 26 probes there in total. Right, there's a lot of potential here. Once again, we see a little bit of pickup micro here by our Protoss player. He's going to try and see if he can potentially close out this game right here, right now. A little bit of a sloppy pickup micro there actually by the Protoss as well, but there's no denying that there is just simply so much stuff as Hero picks up game number 3. I love the fact that none of these games have looked even remotely similar. It's so crazy. Seriously, this makes me so excited. I know I'm such a nerd and I've been raving about StarCraft for so long, but this makes me so excited for the future of SC2 as well, right? I mean, there's no denying, right, that the game level, or like the game skill level rather, is going up. It's been going up throughout the years, and if you were like a Diamond 1 player back in 2010 and you're still a Diamond League player now in 2018, there's no denying that you are miles ahead of your 2010 version. It's just that you improved as fast as everyone else did as well. But right, the level of skill required in order to pull these kind of moves off is ridiculous. But it's still not perfect. We haven't arrived at a state yet where players are playing this absolutely perfectly. I gotta say though, I secretly hope that they were gonna continuously change up the balance of StarCraft 2, but I kinda like where we are at right now. There are so many different varieties possible with all of these builds that I'm curious to see what players will come up next. Right, just the variety, like I actually really like the map pools right now as well. For example, this and the previous one, Neon Violet, Square, Backwater, of course, this one. It allows for such different playstyles compared to, for example, Blackpink LE, right? There are so many different playstyles that you can pull off only on certain maps. I really think we are in probably, I'm definitely going to say that we are definitely at the best spot as far as StarCraft 2 goes that we've ever been. And obviously, balance isn't perfect. A lot of Terran players still really don't like playing against Protoss just because of, for example, the War Prism. But at the top of the line, there's no denying, right? The Terran players are winning just fine. It's just so many, there's just so many tricks that players are trying to pull off that make it so very difficult. But this time around, though, looks like we're setting ourselves up for a bit more of like a standard play. We see a command center going down, as well as that Nexus. We see the Cybernetics core going down inside of the main base of the Protoss player. No structures have been proxied just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we're gonna see something along those lines in just a little bit. Still though, double gas is now being taken here by Hero. It looks like he's just simply gonna play a very normal game. He actually decided to put his structures over here to make it so that a Reaper can't easily access this main base anyway. Stargate now coming up here for Hero as well. If he manages to do a bunch of damage with, for example, a Cyclone, I wouldn't be surprised if he's gonna try and jump on the opportunity to win the game straight up. But this is interesting already, right? Gumiho, rather than going for the much more standard Stimpack first, he has decided, or Combat Shield first, of course, he has decided that he wants to get the much quicker upgrade with the Concussive Shells. Maybe this is something that he has had struggles with. For example, with like a bunch of Stalkers moving across the map, they can really, they can really hurt your day. If you can slow them down a lot, you can easily pick up a game sometimes just because your opponent isn't expecting to be slowed down this early on into the game. And he immediately does follow it up with Stimpack. So it's only really a short upgrade. Concussive Shell will allow him to move across the map even if he really wants to. Now, a Cyclone or rather a Oracle is now already coming out here for a Hero. There's no Cyclone follow-up whatsoever. This Concussive Shell won't be spotted for not a little while, although the Adept, no, it will get, it will be halted there and it will be slowed down, showing here to Hero what exactly is going on in the Terran side of the map. Right now, he recognizes exactly what it is he's going up against. He did decide to put up a pylon over there and then canceled it and replaced it. Just a single proxy pylon. Still, that Reaper going to town right now, it will find out roughly what is going on. But at the same time, an Oracle is already making its move across. And I think that Hero knows very well that he can deal a lot of damage here in the meantime on the other side of the map. Still, Gumiho with the perfect timing here. And look at this, right? Missile turret, seconds from finishing. It is done in 3, 2, 1. And guess where that Oracle is located. Perfect timing, specifically timed for this map in particular. There is no such timing on other maps. It's very close, but it wasn't quite... you can see that he started that up at the absolutely perfect timing. It does look like, though, the defensive Oracle there will be able to pick off these Marauders. But in the meantime, Hero has already set up a pylon here. He's now also following it up with a gateway. He's completely unscouted as far as that goes. And he's got an awful lot of gateways here to try and warp in with. Still, this is definitely not an all-in. He can just simply go with a third base follow-up here if he wants to. Apparently a stasis ward here near the front. Keep in mind, there's no blink available, there's no war prism available, there's none of that. This is just gonna be a bunch of gateway units, as well as, of course, well, instead of going for a third base, he decides to add on more gateways, but as well as, of course, a bunch of these oracles. Gumiho, though, he really needs to get a lot of units out. I wouldn't even mind him getting like a second bunker out at this point either. This is interesting. Hero is going for a push, it looks like. There's actually already a third command center coming up right now as well, but it looks like he's going for a push. Even though his gateways are still finishing up. He's already set up this push. He's just doing a bunch of warp ins from time to time. Oh my god, this is such a cheeky little move, right? Normally we see players like time out this warp gate with the additional gateways finishing up. Instead, we're now seeing the gateways being added on after that gateway finished up. I assumed Hero was going to do some pressure here with maybe 4 gates, but instead, right now, he's going to sit on like 8. Still chrono boost out that Glyphs upgrade for the Adepts. I think this is just going to be a good old Glyph Adept all-in, right? Something we have seen about 100 times in StarCraft 2. At this level of play, at the very least. You don't need that many Adepts to defend against this, but Stimpack will be finished, of course, on these Marines already. Combat Shield just about to be finishing up as well. Infantry weapons upgrades just about to finish up too. This is starting to become really tense, though. Massive Stasis Ward actually slowing down a lot of these reinforcing units as well. It does look like Hero wants to actually be the aggressor right now. Of course, he already has that gateway out over there too. Once again, a Stasis Ward will go down here. This one will be scanned and immediately picked off, though. But look at the amount of Protoss now arriving on this side of the map. It does look like Gumiho sniffed out what's going on. He's getting a couple of additional bunkers here as well. But already, the Shades have arrived. Still, they arrived in like 2 different segments. I don't really know if I like that very much. Hero shades forward with 2 different clumps of units. But Gumiho just simply stimps. And he picks that game up with relative ease. Alrighty, so there we have it. Our final match is gonna be on Eastwatch LE. It's currently 2-2 in a best-of-5 series. Of course, in a best-of-5, it's the first player to win 3 games who will be the victor of the entire match. And so far, I gotta say, these 2 players seem extremely evenly matched. I love it though, right? Like, what is the standard right now in PvT? I mean, if we're gonna see a standard game, I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be this one. Now, there is a very quick pylon scout here once again by our Protoss player, but it's kind of interesting. I'm actually quite surprised as well that Gumiho has decided to not really focus on SCV scouts. We'll see if he does it with maybe this one. Nah, there's no SCV scouting here by Gumiho, even though Hero has been playing rather tricksy here throughout this series so far. I'm actually quite surprised he just decided to not really go for that. Now, judging by that refinery timing, he is likely going to follow this up with a very quick Reaper here in just a little bit. But already, look at that. Second probe moving out. Pylon will be constructed here right on top of the train tracks. Doesn't seem like a particularly safe place to put down a pylon, but you can go ahead and proxy something rather early on. I wonder what he plans on proxying though, because that's a very quick pylon there as well. Obviously, he could use this for a Stargate here in just a little bit, but there's no second gas in the main base just yet here for Hero. Instead, he decides to put out he puts down a gateway almost immediately. Very interesting. Gumiho though, he is going to immediately queue up that Reaper, which is nice for him. That will allow him to roughly know what it is that he needs to go up against. Still, at this point, he's practically blind to any of this aggression. Cybernetics core will be constructed here immediately by Hero. He's now also going for that second assimilator. No expansion to be seen here on the Protoss end of the map, but we do already see that command center here on the low ground. And actually, this small little delay here that this probe is creating, right, is very important. I think we're likely going to be seeing some Adapter or Stalker chrono boosting here in just a little bit. Look at this. He will be able to find that, right? Okay, I was gonna say, you really need to pick that one off. Slight misstep there by Hero. He needed to pull that probe away a little bit further. That does mean that the Reaper will now move across, but he doesn't know about any of this. I think that Hero may plan on actually, once again, going for the shield batteries. 2 Stalkers are currently being produced here by our Protoss player. He is mining 3 and 3 in gas, so he's probably got some bigger plans here in just a little bit as well. He will be able to continue harassing, though, on this low ground. And look at that, right? The command center, it's not going to finish. There's no way this is going to finish. Reaper immediately does decide to turn back home as well. Although, the Reaper, like the Adepts, right? They are very good at picking off these SCVs. Stalkers are much less effective at exactly that. He will be able to pick off these workers one by one, but I love this. I didn't think that the command center was going to finish, but Gumiho is proving me wrong. Really smartly played there by our Terran player, pulling just the amount, the amount of SCVs that he needs there to force the command center to finish up here as well. Very nicely done. Still, we do see that bunker now coming up here. Shield batteries going down near the front as well of our Protoss player. It does look like the bunker will finish up here. Probe still providing a lot of soaking there as well, but now with those shield batteries finishing up, right? I think that Hero is going to continue onwards with this aggression for a little while longer. And please keep in mind, he doesn't really have a whole lot. Oh, he's going to follow it up with the gold base. That's so smart, right? So instead of trying to close out this game with, for example, like an Immortal, which we have seen in many of these cases, right? Or for example, a Stargate, he instead is just, he's using this time that he's creating to go for the gold base instead. Now, I think this build really kind of did rely, though, on that command center not finishing up. If Gumiho didn't finish up that CC, there wouldn't have been a second mule dropping here in just a little bit anyway, right? And Gumiho, I mean, he's got a very nice economy. He's now once again sending that Reaper across the map. Cyclone is taking an awful lot of damage, but these Stalkers will not be able to move up on top of that ramp just yet. Gold base will finish up in just a little bit. Twilight Council are coming up here as well for Hero, but I really do like the position that Gumiho is in right now. Going for that siege tank, just simply going for a very solid amount of units. Keeping that command center alive there was absolutely critical. Gumiho must realize, though, yeah, that something is not quite right. And right now, he sees that there's no command center, or rather Nexus taken here on the low ground. Great micro there as well on this single Reaper. You will be able to pick up these units with absolute ease. He now knows, of course, about the fact that there is indeed an expansion right now at that gold base. He's just going to double check to see if there's any workers there already. Turns out that is not going to be the case. And I wonder what the follow-up is going to be right now for our Terran player. I mean, The natural low ground here of the Terran player has been abandoned. All of the Stalkers have now been forced back home as well to try and deal with this. Blink is about a third of the way done or so. I think that Gumiho could even decide to go for his own gold base if he really wants to. Instead, he's just adding on more and more barracks after also once again securing his low ground. Still, I don't know if the best choice here by Gumiho is to just simply allow his opponent to do whatever he wants. Right? Instead, he's gonna load up a single medevac. I do like this move. Cyclone now finding out as well where all of this aggression came from. He will be able to pick up this command center with absolute ease here in just a little bit, but he decides to reroute towards this pylon here instead. A single Phoenix now confirming where most of those Terran units are located, but with Blink just about to finish up, I think that the Cyclone is actually in a little bit of trouble. Medevac though, still moving across the map. Blink is finishing up in about 12 seconds. Actually, picking up a Cyclone is nice. He's going to try and play a ring around DeRosie, maybe head on over towards the gold base rather than trying to return back home. Here's the Medevac though, and this one will be in a little bit of trouble if it does get picked off. Blink finishing up right now. It was shown almost immediately here by our Protoss player as well. And while so far Gumiho is playing a much more standard game than we have seen him play so far in this series, I don't know if he's in that great of a spot. Like, this is one of those maps, Eastward, right? The gold base can provide so much more value. You don't need nearly as many workers in order to get an even amount of economy. And even Hero now has decided to go for that third base. Blink Stalkers now up into that main base location. They will try to pick off a siege tank almost immediately there. It will go down with just 2 volleys there in total. And I think indeed that Gumiho will be able to just simply blink, or rather Hero that is. He will just simply blink towards the low ground with some perfect micro. Picks up a ton of SCVs actually. A couple of the Stalkers now actually still in the main base. They will just decide to deflect on out of there, but at the same time, right, this really puts the Terran player in a weird location. Now even forced to salvage that bunker to try and get slightly more resources out. There's no denying that Hero is looking like he's in a really good position, but pushing into siege tanks, still a very tough decision to make. He will try and do exactly that. Siege tank will be picked off. Blink, of course, does have a reasonably long cooldown. Marines and Marauders, they are very strong, but they don't have Stimpak just yet. There's no combat shield done. There's no +1 infantry weapons. There's a whole lot of nothing here for our Terran player just yet. And once again, that really makes it so that Hero can continuously harass. Now with that siege tank picked off, there's still one in the main base. He's just gonna blink back and forth here continuously. Charge is now also done. Big warp in of units here once again by our Protoss player. He's now sitting on 3 bases. He doesn't really have like a very sophisticated army composition. It's really just gateway units, but sometimes that's all you really need, right? An hallucinated Colossus! Oh my god, he's trying to scare this Terran player. He must realize that this is an hallucinated Colossus though, right? Although, showing this hallucinated Colossus, it kind of makes it so that there's not a chance that there's actually a natural expansion here taken by Hero either. Like, the hallucinated Colossus is actually super smart. It's gonna try and walk up towards this high ground. Right now, though, you must realize that none of these units are indeed burning, and it will be picked off there. But seeing that for just a little bit, you can't really get a third base up as well as Colossi out, right? So instead, Gumiho may have been just a little bit confused. Still, he's playing like this Terran wall strategy, right? Where you just sort of try to sit behind your Terran walls. You try to have a lot of units. You set up these walls in the perfect moment as well to really try and slow down the amount of progression here. But once again, Protoss is now moving onwards. Still, I wonder if this is maybe not a little bit of too ambitious of a move. There are still a lot of Terran units remaining here as well. SCVs pulled off the line at the perfect moment, and while more and more zealots are now being warped in, I'm starting to get a little bit worried. Stimpak just about to finish up, and that's a really important move here. Of course, the gold base will still be mining here. Hero still has that superior economy, but he really can't keep giving away a lot of those units. Now, he doesn't need to trade super efficiently either, but Stimpak is done. Perfect force fields, though, really shut down a lot of these units. Medevacs immediately boosting forward, picking up a lot of those weakened units as well, but there's no denying that Protoss has been deflected, and Gumiho has a much bigger army here than his opponent. I actually wouldn't mind it at all if he just simply decides to unsiege all of his tanks and goes for an all-out assault. His other option would just be simply go for a third command center. I do think that is an option as well, but that's gonna give Hero a lot of additional wiggle room to start tacking up to, for example, those High Templar and Archon. There's like little buildings scattered all over the map here for our Protoss player. Terran, though, apparently he's got enough. He's decided to move all of his units across the map using reinforcements to try and deal with these couple of stalkers instead, and I do think that that is going to be a smart move. Still, this Protoss army doesn't look that sophisticated, right? It's really just gateway units. Gateway units against Marine Marauder with siege tank support and a lot of medevacts. I mean, this Terran army is standard for a reason. Mass Stalker is great against small units or small amounts of units. These force fields are really solid too, but there are just simply so much Terran here available already. Siege tanks aren't even really helping out in this fight, and he's actually going to shut down part of this Protoss army. Now, of course, Blink is still going to be pretty important as well. Stalkers will be forced to go back home. One of them actually now collapsed on top of, or I guess the rocks collapsed right on top of this army as well. Hero, though, I mean, there's no denying he's got that economy advantage, right? And the economical advantage is very important. Oh my god, this is so cute. He just baited the Stalkers to move over that, and now he's dropping off all of his units on top of this army as well. Reinforcements now coming in, mass recall of those Stalkers and Zealots now forced on top of that gold base as well. This does make it so that the siege tanks are right on top of this army as well. Marines and Marauders trying to stim towards a bit of a different corner, but the Zealots and Stalkers are still holding strong. All of a sudden, right, we see once again the Stalkers blinking forward, the Zealots charging on top of all of those tanks as well. Honestly, the level of play is so high, right? Look at this, right? It's so scrappy, but they're still playing it so smartly. Like, it looks like a scrappy game where neither player really knows exactly what they're doing, but they know exactly what they're doing. It's so sick. Now, there's no Storm available just yet here for these Terran, or for these Protoss units, though, but he will be able to, of course, use feedback on top of all of those medevacts to really shut down a lot of that energy. In the meantime, a couple of Zealots tried to make their way across. There's still no third command center to be seen anyway here for Gumiho. Fourth Nexus has already finished up here for Hero, though, and I really have to say I like this spot that our Protoss player is in right now. He still has a lot of units to warp in as well. He has a very, like, not sophisticated army, I suppose. There's not even Storm available here. He's just made the Templar Archives to try and go for a bunch of Archon. The Archon trying to shoot down from that low ground. They won't be able to do so, but there is so much Protoss available. I think, indeed, that Hero has done it. Gumiho is forced to GG out, and Hero picks up this series in a 3-2 fashion. So people sometimes ask me, Lowko, what is the current standard in all of the matchups? Well, for Protoss versus Terran, there is no denying that it is really hard to say what the standard currently is. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below. And if you want to see more, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get a notification as soon as I upload more. Other than that, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day, okay? Do not forget to smile, and I will see you in the next one.